I once received an email from a client with feedback that was 3 A4 pages long.
Oh my God!
And not only that, but that was also our third round of revisions. So was it my fault, or was it the difficult client being difficult? Well, without spoiling it too much for you, both, to be honest. And in this video, I want to share with you what you can do to deal with 5 different types of difficult clients to avoid sticky situations like this one. And I'll share with you what I replied to that particular client to smooth things out and ensure that we move on with the project. Now, before I do that, I do want to say that difficult clients made me a better business owner. Bill Gates says that your most unhappy customers are your greatest source of learning. And I can definitely vouch for that. Each new crappy situation taught me something new about myself, about my business, and allowed me to craft a better client experience. So yes, dealing with difficult clients can be challenging and unpleasant, but it's an essential part of growing as a business owner and building and maintaining your own business. So with that said, let's dive in and talk about some of the most common types of difficult clients you may encounter on your freelance journey and how to deal with them. The first and probably most common type of difficult clients you may encounter is Mr. Where's My Money? Basically, clients who don't pay for your work, whether it's paying on time or at all. And I've definitely had my fair share of clients like that, especially earlier on in my journey. And each time it taught me a new lesson in leadership, business management, and communication. And that's something to remember as we go through each of these different client types. Most of these sticky client situations can be avoided or at least greatly reduced by improving internal things in your business. So how do you deal with Mr. Where's My Money? The best way to handle a non-paying client is to establish clear payment terms and deadlines before you actually start the project. So you should be very clear about your payment expectations, when you expect the client to pay, how do you expect them to pay, and also the consequences of late or non-payment. Oftentimes, freelancers keep this information buried inside a contract, if at all, and the client just skims over it without really understanding what it means. So instead of outlining these terms in the contract or only in the contract, you should still put it in the contract. Think about how you can inform your client about this in the proposal, the welcome guide if you send one, maybe in the FAQ section inside your client portal, basically any type of documentation you send to your client. For example, inside my own proposal, I have a page outlining the cost of the project and a payment plan breakdown. So my client knows exactly when payments will be expected. I also let them know that they will need to pay a 30% deposit to reserve their spot in my calendar when they sign the agreement. And then in the agreement itself, I, of course, have clauses that outline what constitutes a late payment and what will happen if I don't receive the payment on time. In my case, I enforce a late payment fee if the client still hasn't paid the invoice after a certain period of time and a certain amount of payment reminders. And finally, I also emphasize on some of this in the FAQ section inside my project portal so that I know I've covered all my bases and did everything I could from my side to inform the client and to ensure that they know when they're supposed to pay. I'd also recommend setting up automated payment reminders and post due date emails so you don't have to chase every single client manually. You can do that with most tools that allow you to create and send invoices to clients, but if you don't use one, at least have a couple of templates ready so you don't have to type them up from scratch every single time. The second type of difficult client I want to talk about is what I call the superhero client. Basically the client who has the superpower of disappearing on you, the ghoster. Ghost clients can be really difficult to work with because while they do provide you with feedback and they send you the assets you need and they do pay you, they also keep on disappearing on you for weeks or months, which really messes up with your timeline and can actually make you work at a loss. I once had a project that was supposed to last 4 months and it dragged on for over a year. Yeah, a year. And yes, the client paid me the agreed fee, but I ended up working so much overtime that I probably lost money on this project. And looking back, this was entirely my fault and probably could have been avoided if I set the expectations right from the start and led the project with more authority. In most cases, disappearing clients are basically clients who do not understand or respect your time. And so it's your job to educate your client on that. So first, you want to be really clear on your communication expectations and explain to your client that any delay will affect the timeline. However, this isn't enough because some clients don't really have a deadline they're working towards, so they don't mind pushing the date a little bit, but you do. That's why in addition to that, you also want to include a late or ghosting clause as well as a restart fee in your contract. This basically means that if your client fails to communicate with you and provide assets or feedback on time, which prevents you from delivering the work, and you've tried to reach out to them X number of times over X number of days, then you are at liberty of either putting the project on hold or canceling it altogether for lack of communication. If the client decides to come back and finally resurface and restart the project, then you can charge them a restart fee to get them back into your calendar. Other things that help me manage those superhero ghosters is to set up monthly payment plans versus milestone payment plans. And this ensures that payments keep on coming even if the project is delayed. And of course, do your part and ensure that you keep the communication going and the project alive. Just because a client stopped responding doesn't mean that you should take a step back and kind of take it easy. In fact, you should do the exact opposite and increase your communication so your client sees that you're on top of it and you need to get this project moving or there will be consequences. So having clear deadlines, sending reminders, informing your client of the next steps, these are all the things that you should be doing to ensure that, at least from your side, communication is on point. Now, before I move on to the next type of difficult clients, which I'm sure some of you may recognize, I think it's worth mentioning that with any type of difficult client situation, you need to act with tact and empathy. You can't just make assumptions on your client's behalf about why they're not paying or why they're not responding, etc. You don't know what's happening in their life. The only thing that you can do is set clear expectations and preventative measures, and then do your best to find out the reason behind the situation before you take action. So in my case, for example, before I take any hard measures, I always try to get my client on the phone if I haven't heard a reply to my emails to really understand what is going on. And in most cases, this would actually help resolve the problem, just getting the client on the phone and talking to them and trying to understand the situation. So set clear expectations. Never assume, and try to get your client on the phone first before you take any hard measures. With that said, let's move on to the next type of client, which is the uncertainty master. Now, this is the type of clients who don't know what they need or what they want, but they'll know it when they see it. Have you had clients like this? I definitely had a few. And this is actually a client type that you can usually spot early on before you even commit to the project. They're the undecisive type that can't really decide what they need and what they want. And they say things like, hey, I trust you. You get full creative freedom on this one. But you don't really. And you can feel like this is going to be way harder than it seems. You just get this gut feeling. I've had a few of those where I decided not to listen to my gut and still said yes. And because I didn't have the correct process in place, I often regretted it. And that's the thing. You want to build a process that will set your client up for success through multiple approval required stages. And you also want to clearly outline in your proposal, your contract, your welcome guide, your FAQ section, what a round of revisions actually is and how many revision rounds your client gets and what happens when they run out and need more. Remember that our clients, they don't usually know much about design. So when you just tell them, hey, you'll get 2 revision rounds, that doesn't really mean anything to them. So clearly explain what it means so they know what to expect. Something that greatly helped me with indecisive clients as well is presenting my work live on a call versus a PDF presentation. And this really helped me guide my client through my design process, my thinking, explain my design decisions, and then open up the floor to feedback and questions. This made a huge difference for me and my clients and really greatly improved the entire experience. Design is hard to judge, and some clients may judge it purely on personal preference. But a strong strategic design isn't about personal preference. It's about what will work for their own audience and what will get them to their desired goals. And talking through the design decisions and being available on the spot to clarify, explain, or ask questions really helps a lot with educating your client and getting the design approved faster. The fourth type of difficult clients I want to introduce you to is the micromanager. And just like with the previous type, this is one you can usually spot early on because they nitpick your proposal, your contract, pretty much every single detail. And you guessed it, that's the client who sent me 3 pages of feedback and revisions. Those are really hard clients to manage because while some do appreciate a hands-on approach, micromanagers can be very overbearing and make it really challenging for you to execute the project effectively, leading to communication issues, personal frustrations, project delays, you name it. The best way to handle a micromanager is to be proactive in communicating project progress and setting clear expectations and responsibilities from the start. So you want to establish the scope of the project, but also the responsibilities of each parties. What are you responsible for? What is the client responsible for? And what type of input can the client provide and when? I also like to refer this type of client back to the project goals, the brief, and the strategy work that we've done together. If I feel like we're really struggling to move forward or if we're moving into another direction entirely. You have to remember that your clients hired you for a reason. They hired you to solve a problem they have, to help them find a solution. You're the expert here, not them, and you need to guide them in the right direction. It doesn't mean dismissing every comment or every suggestion they have, but instead bringing them back on track when needed. And that's exactly what I had to do with the client I mentioned at the beginning of this video. This client in particular wanted to be very involved in every step of the process, which is fine. But they were also interfering with the strategy and the progress by seeking external advice and getting tons of feedback and getting inspiration from all over the place. So while I'm not against being hands-on in the process, I do appreciate a client who's responsive and wants to be involved. In this case, I actually had to be a little firmer with the client and explain to them the importance of focusing on the project goals and why seeking too much feedback from people outside the organization may delay the project and actually sway us in the wrong direction. All right, and the final type of difficult client I want to mention here is the Mr. One Last Thing, or the scope creep. This is the type of client that keeps on adding new requirements, new features, new ideas to the project without considering the additional time, resources, or costs involved. To this day, I still remember one of the very first projects I got on Upwork for a 10-page college prospectus design that just somehow turned into a 35-page document. Oh, Gigi, what were you thinking? But listen, we're not here to shame our past selves because we learn from those situations and the mistakes we make. And in this case, my mistake, once again, was not being firm enough with the client and basically executing every single one of their requests for free. So what can you do to deal with scope creeps? Well, most importantly is to clearly outline the entire scope of the project in the proposal, the contract, the portal, etc. Your client really needs to be 100% clear on what exactly are they getting for the amount they're paying. And with that, you also want to emphasize that the deliverables outlined in this proposal or in this contract, these are all the deliverables that you'll be doing. But if the client wants to add anything else or wants additional changes, additional deliverables, they need to request them in advance so you can provide them with a quote for that. So there you have it, the 5 most popular types of difficult clients you're likely to meet on your freelance journey, but you can manage them and minimize sticky situations by following the suggestions I share with you in this video. Now, you probably noticed that at the center of it all is communication. And I honestly don't think that there is such a thing as over communicating with your client and keeping your client informed. As a client myself, when I hire a copywriter or developer or coach or anyone else, I love hearing from them. I love that they keep me updated. So your clients probably feel the same way as well. And also, don't be afraid of actually facing difficult clients. Yes, these tips will help you minimize risks and maybe smooth things out, but I still believe that difficult clients are an important part of your freelance journey, of your learning journey, and you will come out stronger and more knowledgeable in the end. Now, I'd love to hear your own stories of how you dealt with some difficult client situations, so feel free to share them in the comment section below, along with the lessons you learned in the process. And in the meantime, I'll see you in the next video.